By a raise of hands, how many people at their organizations view training, especially on digital tools, as an issue within your organization? Okay. I think this is a good topic to cover today then. So the first speaker will be Cheryl Davis. Cheryl is the founder of Baywork, and she served as the chair for the first 6 or so years, and she has her own consulting business now, CKD Consulting, and she's going to tell us about some work that she's been doing. Cheryl?
So, one of the things that was mentioned earlier is that we had a white paper that we all worked on together, and I hope you were able to have a chance to look at that. And my perspective on this particular topic, although I was involved with workforce planning, a lot of it really comes from where I spent the majority of my career. So I worked for the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission for over 30 years. And the job that I had the longest was that I was the manager of the Water Supply and Treatment Division. So I was managing water treatment and water storage and water transmission. And so I was supervising people like water treatment operators and electricians and EMTs and other skilled trades workers. So this was the system that we were trying to maintain. So how that translates digitally is we were using, or at least trying to use, asset management systems. We were using SCADA. The water quality people were using LIMS. And it was something we worked with and lived with, and to be honest, struggled with during the entire time. So we did some stuff well, some not so well, and some systems, we had them for decades, and after decades, we still weren't using that system real well, to be honest. So much to my surprise, I also have stayed very involved with volunteer activities. And specifically, I'm very involved with the International Water Association, which I would recommend to anybody. I found that very valuable. But in 2018, I went to the IWA World Water Congress in Tokyo, and much to my surprise and kind of chagrin, there was all this stuff about the rise of digital water. And it kind of had a magical feel because the people talking were vendors, right? And I thought, yeah, that wasn't what I was experiencing. When I was managing operations, it didn't feel that way. So it felt like, and there are all these different brands of magic, and it was also kind of weird, like somehow maybe just last year this stuff had been invented, and I'm thinking, isn't this the same stuff I've struggled with for decades? And the answer is no, not altogether, right? A lot of the tools are new, but frankly, a lot of the challenges are the same. And it's on us as utilities to identify those challenges and struggle with the challenges, because that's not the role the vendor's going to play for you. So we went forward, and I've had the opportunity to work with Baywork in this area, and we had the, as Catherine has mentioned, our book, it wasn't a book, we had a report on digital water. And at the end of it, there were a number of recommendations. Basically what happened, we had the scope of work was just to write about the problems and challenges, but I just couldn't resist. We had such brilliant people working with us on the advisory committee that I wanted to get their ideas on things maybe we should pursue in the future. So we'll be doing an exercise later that relates to that. But one of the ideas that came out of it was we were using this kind of vague term about digital literacy, and it's not that it's a wrong or a bad term, but it's sure not a specific term. And it sure doesn't get to the reality that for different job categories, once you get past that general concept, you need to get into what does a specific job category, what are the digital skills they specifically need. And so since Baywork and JVS, which is our partner, wanted to get into that more, we turned to doing research specifically on that because it's one of the Baywork basics is to have research-based action. So since Baywork has, as you may be aware, we have identified mission-critical job categories. The scope of our work wasn't sufficient for us to address it for all of the mission-critical job categories, but we did address it for 3. So water treatment operators, wastewater treatment operators, which it turns out really in terms of digital tools, there's not complete overlap, but there's quite a bit of overlap. And then a third category, which is instrumentation and control staff. Now, there's a lot of variety in how those tasks are really done. They might be called instrument techs, they might be called EMTs, and sometimes the work in that instrumentation and control category might actually be done by an electrician. But we wanted to study, here are the goals of our project. One was to figure out what are the digital competencies that are needed in this world today for people to perform these jobs competently. Second one was for us to look at in the Bay Area, what kind of a job are we doing in terms of having the training resources available so that the community colleges and the unions can help prepare qualified candidates, and also so that we can provide adequate training within our utilities. Now, a third thing I want to point out to you is, because this third goal was really important, we're only addressing in the report that's going to be published, we're only going to be talking about these 3 job categories, and we'll be talking about research that was primarily done in the Bay Area. But attached to the report will be the data gathering templates, and I really want to stress this because I'm not aware of any other mechanism that's available for doing this kind of digital assessment. And so this could be used in South Carolina for electricians, it could be used for accountants, or really you could modify it, but I think this concept is important and that it was valuable to do this research, including developing the data collection templates. And another recommendation, another goal was to make some recommendations based on the findings. One thing was when I initially went into it, I just thought in terms of the basic operational tools that different skilled trades workers need to use. But we found that they needed to also address business tools and also have operational tools that they used indirectly. I&C staff we found were often underappreciated in their necessity for maintaining all the analog and digital equipment required for digital systems. East Bay Med was an exception to that. They take that training seriously. The digital training provided by utilities is normally both limited and informal, and we need more precise definition of the core skills that are necessary for people to acquire the specific skills that we need them to have. Few community college programs provide the level of hands-on access needed for people to get the understanding they need of digital tools. And finally, there's no magic. So digital tools only work in the hands of people who understand them and know how to use them. Students and staff need help in order to learn how to use these tools, and utilities need to make that investment in training and in assisting with the training of the future generations. And we need collaboration between community colleges, unions, utilities, as is required for on-site learning, and for us to provide adequate training to our staff. So internships, pre-apprenticeships, and all that level of support. Buying the tool is the easy part. Making the investment so that you can use the tool, that's the investment you need to focus on.
You mentioned East Bay MUD's INC training or instrumentation tech training program. Can you go a little bit more into how that stands out?
So what I thought was so cool about it was that they had gone through all of the kinds of tasks that the people needed to be able to do, and then had developed a training program around it. Maybe what I should do is take you back to that. Okay, maybe you can't see it well, but you can see structurally that they really looked at it. And what I found was, one of my observations was that most utilities really underappreciate their instrumentation and control staff. They don't realize that there's really a wide range of skills that they need to have, not just with digital tools, but with math and science. And there's a tendency not to fully staff the positions, not to keep them full, not to pay them enough. And my prediction is that unless the industry starts really getting serious about that and paying these people enough money and training them enough, since the whole world is becoming so dependent on these digital tools, people who are willing to spend money will be taking those people away, and we won't be able to support our digital tools due to lack of instrumentation and control staff.
And Cheryl, just in fairness, the East Bay MUD folks were very generous in sharing that list of competencies with a working group within Baywork that included SFPUC. Joel was part of it, and Valley Water. And so I think that approach is now being shared within Baywork and being adopted in SFPUC's case in an apprenticeship program, and in Valley Water in terms of a really intensive long-term internship.
Great. Thank you, Cheryl. Okay. Our next speaker is Jimmy Dang from Oro Loma Sanitary District, and he's going to talk about their operator training program.
Thank you, Catherine, Cheryl. My name is Jimmy Dang. I'm with the Oro Loma Sanitary District. I serve as their district engineer. And I remember when I got a call from Cheryl and Catherine, and they asked me, hey, do you have any cool programs or projects that you'd implemented recently to talk about training tools for your operators or your staff? I said, absolutely. I have a 40-minute presentation on this. Oh, that's awesome. Well, you only have 10 minutes. So I have an extremely truncated version of the 40-minute presentation, and I would love to talk about a lot of the implementation steps related to the acceptance of the program that Shane touched on this morning, a lot of, but this is going to be really focused on the actual program itself. So a little bit of background. The Oro Loma Sanitary District is located 5 miles down the road from here. Along the bay, and if you've ever been along the Bay Trail before, just south of the San Leandro Marina, we have this big building that has a bunch of whales, a big whale mural painted on it. So that's where we're located. This is a shot of our plant. And then we also collect the sewage from Castro Valley Sanitary District. They're our sister agency. We have a 12 MGD average dry weather flow plant. 273 miles of collection sewer, 12 lift stations, 13 square mile service area, and more recently, in the last 2 years, we've upgraded our treatment plant from an activated sludge process to now removing nutrients. So along with that, we had to provide additional training to our newest operators and even existing staff. And lastly, kind of the touching point here is we've had, actually the number now is 40% turnover in the last 5 years. So with that said, what goes out the door when a senior operator walks out the door as well? Exactly, their knowledge goes out the door as well. So we established, with the board and our management staff, established some strategic goals. It was to develop written training modules in the competency-based program that are, and this is really just focused on the wastewater operators, for them to learn off of, access, develop, train new and existing operators. And we were trying to complete this goal by the end of 2022, and we did complete that goal. And we organized the plant into 25 different modules, different areas, and that's how we were able to work on breaking up such a large, monumental task into individual bite-sized pieces that we could tackle. So the question you have to ask yourself is, when you train, what does that mean to you? Is that what training means? No, you don't want that. And then the next question you have to ask yourself is, does it matter how you get to the end result? Or is this more, does it matter? So you answer that question based on this photo. So it does matter, and so which leads me to the next step is SOPs are not optional, right? If you want consistent results, you want consistent training, the right way to do things, you need to write an SOP. Statistically, SOPs are, in the statement at the very bottom here, what your agency has determined to be the most safe, efficient, and effective way to do that operation. And SOPs help predictable, have predictable end results, something that can be repeated again and again. Who has SOPs? All these agencies have SOPs, right? Everyone's raising their hands. So they are a very vital element to your agency. If something's important enough to be a job competency, it's important enough to have a standard of performance, and that's what the SOP is here to help you do. Now, typically an SOP is how to perform a certain task, right? Turn this valve, open this valve, drain this, do this to get this end result. So we've taken those SOPs, put them into a computer-based program, and we actually taught the process as well. Why are you doing this? What part of the process does this involve? When you turn this valve, what happens to the process? And so it's more holistic, and it helps develop your operators more than just, hey, follow these instructions, just turn the valve, I don't know what to do, just do this, and you're done. So we developed these SOPs. This one in particular is on our hypochlorite dosing system. And we turned it into this, an online computer-based training program where an operator can go to it, we can track their progress, learn what the process is, how to perform each task, understand why they're performing each task, how that affects the process, and ultimately we'll have training, on-hands training from more of a senior operator to a newer operator, and then have a gap analysis performed even after that fact. The one thing we stress to our staff is, hey, we're going to test you, but if you don't understand the material at the end of the day, it's not your fault. It's our issue, and we have to develop a way to help you train and to help you pass and understand the concepts that we're trying to relay to you. It kind of takes the pressure and the edge off of the operator, off of the staff, and we really want to just promote. We just want you to learn the material. We want you to be an efficient operator and be successful. So some of the challenges, this is a little bit outdated, I apologize for that, but we did not have any formal documented training program. Now we do. We relied on SOPs that were developed over many years, and so some were outdated, so this gave us the opportunity to try to take everything that we've had in the past and update document, and now we have a set standard. And then, of course, this bullet, rely on training and knowledge from different operators, which leads to inconsistent knowledge transfer. So typically, you have a new operator, a new employee come in. How do you train them? Hey, I'll hook you up, link you up to our most senior operator. Show them the ropes, show them the plant. Great. Hey, I learned how to do this process today. Next shift shows up. Hey, I want you to learn from this operator. Well, this is how you do this. That's not what the other guy told me. So the nice thing about developing this program is we actually got buy-in from the staff. We grabbed all the operators, sat them down, and said, look, you guys want any training? Here's training. You guys helped develop this training. That's how we got the buy-in. You guys now, sure, there's different ways of performing certain processes, certain tasks in the treatment plant, but let's all get together and agree on what the right way of doing a particular task is. In some cases, there is only one right way. In some cases, there's a range of knobs that you can turn to operate that process, and that's great. Let's identify that range and document it. Now you have a set standard in which that you can teach from. Again, just transferring the knowledge from seasoned employees to new employees, and then standardizing the training efforts. We started off in phases. We had 4 phases that we used to develop this program. The first phase involved these 3 modules: disinfection, wet switchgear, and the influent pump station. Now we have over 25 modules, over 4 phases, and we have about $400,000 invested in this program so far. This was a little bit of what I touched on before. You have online training. The operator, or even new or old, jumps on the computer, goes through the content. Then we have the in-person training. After they learn the content, hooks up with a senior operator, shows them how to perform the actual task. Then we test them through the training gap analysis. And the end result is real nice. It's just-in-time reference. We have tablets and our phones that have this app on it, and you can literally just go tap on whatever process you want and look at video and the SOP and say, okay, that's how I'm supposed to do this. How many times have you guys gone to YouTube and said, oh, let me try to fix this dishwasher on my own, right? And okay, that's how you do it. That's not a problem. So that's essentially what this is. It's fantastic. And this is just a screenshot, actual video of how you can log into Target Solutions. I believe every agency here has access to Target Solutions, which is now Vector Solutions. Houses a lot of training in there. We develop our personal training in there, and it's loaded up onto that program. So again, just a quick video of what the operator can access and train from. We talked about the job competency training checklist. I won't go through those. And then, of course, I touched on the just-in-time training, gap analysis. Anyway, so why do we develop this training system? I already touched on that. We wanted to capture all the legacy knowledge that was walking out the door, and then also standardize on a specific training, a specific knowledge on how to operate certain areas of the plant. Lessons learned, you have to get buy-in from your staff. You know, I walked up to the first day I walked up to the group and I said, hey, we're gonna develop a training module for you guys. And the first comment that came out of one of the operators is, this is not gonna work. It's like, how do you know it's not gonna work? So, okay, it's not gonna work. How about you join the team and you help develop it so that we can make it work? And so it worked out really, really well. It does take a lot of time. We dedicate at least 1 hour a week for the entire operations staff to focus on individual SOPs, individual modules. This was a 3-year effort. But ultimately, that's what I wanted to put together. Last message of the day, or of my presentation: if you think training employees and having them leave is expensive, try not training your employee and having them stay. And lastly, a nice quote from Andy Morrison: enlist your current employees to help build the training system they wish they had when they first started at the job. Thank you. I did want to recognize Dave Patzer as well. He helped develop this program with us, so contact information there. Feel free to reach out. Thank you.
We have three minutes for questions for Jimmy.
Great presentation. Thank you very much. Curious about your perspective now that you have this in place. How are you keeping continuous improvement going on the process?
Yeah, there's links. There's a link that we can go to, and we literally just say, here's the SOP. We mark it up via PDF or comments on each page, and it gets updated by DKF. We have ongoing services contract with them to perform those updates.
Sorry to ask a two-parter then.
It's okay.
So with that in place, if you look at what we traditionally have done, which was like you say, tribal knowledge, operator says, come on, here's how I do it, and then somebody else comes along and says, here's how I do it. So literally, that ability to include a more humanized perspective, I kind of tweak this, do this, blah, blah, is that part of your mechanism? Because I think that's the problem, is that we kind of put things to bed, so to speak, and we have an ability to make a change, but we're not putting that human element back in, that innovation that has come from practice and using and so on.
Right. So a lot of it is a collaborative effort. Typically, when there's a new process that comes up in a plant or in the agency, it involves engineering as well to deliver a project. So that's where it actually first starts, is in engineering, to identify what the change is. Then at that point, you work collaboratively with your operators to update those SOPs and those modules.
So you mentioned some money and some time. I'm curious, who was pushing? Who was the champion? How did you get all that time and all that money?
We identified a need. We saw a bunch of people walking out the door, right? We had a 40-year guy that left that knew things that probably we didn't even want to know ourselves. But anyway, so at that point, we're also upgrading our plant. When you develop a new process, a new project, you typically pay a consultant to develop an operations manual, right? No one walk over there. So you have this 80-page, 150-page document that you give to your operations manager, and they're supposed to disseminate that information to their staff. Well, how many people actually read the 150-page document? So what we did was we literally took that same document, especially with the process that I just spoke about that we upgraded 2 years ago. We took that document, which we still paid for because we needed that information, and we transformed that into individual modules. We transformed that into 10 individual modules within just nutrient removal alone. Can I answer your question?
Yeah, sort of. I was looking more for which department was it? Engineering.
It was a combination of engineering and operations. So we found a need, went to the GM and the board and asked for the money. They gave it to us, and we implemented the system.
I think you mentioned Travel Solutions. Is that the software?
Target Solutions.
Target Solutions, and I'm not familiar with that. And I was curious also about what software you were using to do your assessments.
So everything is housed inside Target Solutions. I think sort of more of background, back-end type of programming you're probably referring to. I don't really have a great understanding on that side. But a lot of the assessments are just PDF forms. And as far as the interface and the programming is concerned, that's all DKF and how they were able to put all that together on the programming side. Target Solutions is free. It's available through CSRMA, which I think most of the sanitary agencies have access to. Do your risks? Yes. So that is free. There's a lot of other useful tools in there, a lot of training programs, OSHA-related, safety-related programs. Lots of video on there on training on OSHA compliance or fire safety, or you name it, it's all in there. But you should have access to it through CSRMA, or you call Dave Patzer, he'll get you access to it. Thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from Jordan Demerol from Fairfield Sassoon Utility. Jordan?
Good morning, everybody. My name's Jordan Damarill. I'm the district engineer at the Fairfield-Sassoon Sewer District. I oversee our engineering operations and maintenance groups. But in all of my spare time, I like to focus on operator training and preparing candidates to get into this industry. So I'm an instructor at the Solano Community College, teaching water and wastewater classes to prepare folks to join our agencies and be ready. So today I want to talk a little bit about how we connect the dots between the community college program and actual real paying jobs at all of our industries. So real quick, show of hands, who here has openings right now in your operations and maintenance department? Okay, let the record show that half of the room has hands up, so I came to the right place. So I have good news for you. And this probably came out a little small on these screens, but this map shows all of the community college programs in our area that are pumping out candidates who are really technically qualified to be employees at our agencies. We've got 4 different community colleges focused on water, wastewater operator training. We've got schools focused on electrical technology and mechanical technology. If you're not aware of these pipelines for employees into your agencies, come talk to me. You should be aware of this. There's lots of candidates that are being really well trained on the technical aspects of water and wastewater treatment, distribution, collections. Taking a dive into a little more specifics, again, I said I teach at Solano Community College. This is a sample of the curriculum for their water, wastewater operations program. So you can see it's a mix of core treatment classes, some electives on pumps and motors or water conservation, some other aspects. But these programs at their heart are geared towards helping candidates pass the State Water Board operator exams, right? As they should. These are requirements for operators in our industry. They have to be licensed by the state, and so that's our focus. But what I want to think about a little bit today is, what are we missing? And so I think a big part of what we miss in that training program is the digital literacy. And when I say digital literacy, I'm really talking about the attitude towards technology, towards software, towards these digital tools that we've been spending our day talking about, how they're beneficial and how they can improve our performance and our efficiency going forward. So I have up here a list of tools, and skimming down the list, these are tools that most of us use every day to do our job, right? We start at basic computer use, tablet use, understanding how to send an email and how to send a Teams chat. We all became experts at Zoom recently, right? Things like our maintenance management systems, most of these are digital now, and you have to understand how to log into this system, how to pull up your work order list to understand what it is you need to do today. And then looking at operations tools, we've talked a little bit about SCADA and control systems today, actually operating the plant, and understanding how this software program is actually making physical changes in the plant behind you is a really important job of being an operator. You need to understand what's inside the black box. And then a big part of this is data. I think we've implemented a lot of tools in the last decade or so that give us a ton of data, right? You can go pull trends of every digital parameter in your treatment plant for the last who knows how many years, but what do you do with that data? I think this is a focus that we've been missing out on, is really making sure that our operations staff are versed in data, can be able to pull up an Excel sheet and run a trend, look at where things are going and make decisions based on facts and evidence rather than that experience and that gut feel. Because as we've talked about today, our workforce is shifting younger and less experienced, right? We're losing these people that have been in our industry for a long time. So the gut feel is maybe reduced. Let me say the quality of the gut feel is reduced from where it was 5 years ago because we don't have that breadth of experience. So I don't think anyone in this room is saying that, but you might be asking yourself, so what? This problem is going to solve itself, right? We train on the job. We just heard from Jimmy, and great training program to really prepare people for how to operate the facility. But we'll teach them when they get here. And furthermore, it's 2022. Everyone's got a computer and everyone's got a cell phone in their pocket. We all know how the internet works. And as we shift younger and hire more people from the Gen Z generation, I mean, these Gen Zers, they don't even know what life was like before the internet and computers, right? So of course, they're going to be able to adapt to our changing work requirements and move to the digital future. And then we can always just hire more E&I staff or IT staff to actually take care of these digital tools. It's not really an operations issue, right? Well, I don't think that's true. And again, you probably can't read my slides because the screens are a little bit smaller. But the reality is that, yeah, on-the-job training is great, and we will not replace that on-the-job training because every agency has different tools and different technologies, and you have to learn the specifics. But what I want to make sure we do as an industry is prepare people with the literacy to understand what types of tools are available, what the benefits are, and why should I go along with this, to connect back to this morning's conversation about that fear of the unknown and the fear of the not knowing the vision of where we're going. If we can set the stage, at the community college level before people even get into the field to understand the importance of these tools, I think that's going to be inherent in their attitude going forward, and we won't have to fight as hard to overcome that resistance. With regards to the changing workforce and getting younger and more technologically savvy, I agree, but I found some recent stats just to see if I was on the right track, to find that still, this is as of 2018, so the data is a little old, but only 78% of US households have a computer, a desktop or a laptop computer. So when we say that everyone today knows how to use a computer, that's not necessarily true. And as we look as a workforce, there's a lot of conversation in the world today about expanding our horizons and reaching out to different communities and different subsets of people that we haven't traditionally reached out to. We have to realize that there are socioeconomic differences in access and experience with these digital tools. And so we have to make sure that we can supplement that training for people coming into the industry. And with regards to electrical instrumentation, IT staff, my answer is yes, we need to do that. We all need to open our pocketbooks and find money to fund these positions. But I would argue that that's not going to entirely solve the problem. We need those people to support the software, support the technology, so that we can make best use of it going forward. But our frontline operations staff are the folks that are using these tools, operating the equipment, and have to understand how it all works together. So we really need to focus on making sure that our operations staff are prepared with this digital literacy. So how do we address these challenges? I'll admit right now I don't have a silver bullet, right? This is a long-term problem, and that's part of what we want to do today is start this conversation. But there's a few areas that I think we can focus on to start addressing this situation. First, from the community college perspective, we really need to work on updating the curriculum. We need to factor in more of these technological advances, more of the modern use of data and SCADA systems and PLCs and sensors and instruments that we use today that aren't in these textbooks that we've been using for 30 years to prepare students for water and wastewater operator jobs. That requires input from industry. These community colleges they're fashioning their program around what they think we want. So we're the industry, and we need people, we need all of you and representatives from your agencies to interact with the community colleges and help explain to them what we're missing in our education pathway. The other thing is giving more opportunities for hands-on training and plant tours and demonstrations. This gives students the feel of what it looks like to work in this industry, what kinds of tools and skills they might need to develop. It might give them a chance while they're still in school to maybe take a supplementary class in, I don't know, typing or basic computer use so that they feel more comfortable when they get into the workforce to be able to jump right in and use these tools. From an agency perspective, I think the most important thing is providing more opportunities for students to get a taste of the industry through apprenticeships and internships. And Baywork is doing a ton on this front to make sure we have training programs that get people into the field. But the best experience for a student to understand what digital tools they need to use is to actually go see it in action, and work with it. And also focusing on onboarding to make sure that we aren't setting people up for failure by not providing some of that baseline technology training that they might need to do more advanced things at the job. And then finally, collaboration. And that's why we're all here today, to learn from each other, to share best practices in how we all adapt to this changing world, the increase of technology, and making sure that our workforce is prepared to handle it. So in closing, I'll just say, we all know things are changing rapidly. The water and wastewater industry is much different today than it was 10 years ago, and we need to make sure that our candidate development pathways adapt to reflect that and make sure we continue to have the best candidates available for our industry. So there's a lot of ways you can get involved. If you're interested in teaching at a community college and helping train the next generation, or getting more involved in Baywork, feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is there. And with that, I will take any questions.
Jordan, again, thank you very much for a great presentation. I was very pleased to see that HR software and timesheets, everybody touches that software. And coming from the world of HR, I'm very, very pleased to see that. I'm curious about your perspective, though, as you talked about the digital literacy perspective. We're teaching them how to use the digital tools, but we're gaining new digital information. What is your thoughts about the world of data scientists and analytics, and how does that play in there? Because I don't see that on that list.
Absolutely. So you probably saw my little SCADA trend at the bottom, right? So we've all been collecting data in a SCADA system for years, right? It goes into a database. You can look at a trend. Most of our operators are looking at the last 24 hours or the last 4 hours to say, okay, this process has been operating like this, and now it's like this. I need to make an adjustment. That's great, but we're missing out on the bigger picture. We have this data, speaking for my plant, Fairfield Sassoon, we keep all of our data minute by minute for 5 years. We've got a ton of data to go back and make really smart, informed decisions about when's the best time to turn this pump on to save power, when's the best time to do our backwash process to miss our diurnal peaks so that we keep our energy use low and don't set a new demand rate for the month. I think the data analysis piece is a huge part of this, and I'm not aware of any agencies that are really knocking it out of the park on this front. I think it's a growing area of interest, and it's going to be a combination of our engineering teams, our IT teams, and our operations teams to help work together and understand what is the right path to better utilize that data. I don't think we need all of our operators to go get a supplementary associate's degree in data science management, but I think, again, building in some of that literacy of some basic data analysis. How do you take an average of this data? How do you create a trend line to see if the process is drifting up or down? Those are aspects that I think we could do a better job of including into our community college training programs. Again, that don't necessarily help you with the questions on the state exam, but are essential when you get into the workforce.
When you're going through the workbook that you're trying to get them to pass the testing for the State Water Board, do you find throughout your class you have the time to work through these other technology pieces, or is your entire class filled up with just trying to get them to that space where does it need to be an additional class, or are you saying you have the time and energy that we could implement a new program and include that in what you're already doing?
Yeah, great question. The program is pretty chock full already, right? We're teaching the whole wastewater treatment class in 13 weeks, or the whole wastewater treatment process in gory detail. So it is a challenge, and I think this is a potential conflict between what we as industry want and what the community colleges want. For those of you that aren't aware with the details of the community college system, they generally get paid by issuing certificates and degrees. And so we've seen a push from some of the local community colleges to start creating smaller certificate programs that have fewer classes. So you get a certificate of achievement now after 12 units, which is it hooks you in, you say, I made some progress, I've achieved something, but it's even fewer hours now that we have to teach the relevant things. So I think it's a combination of just working in that information into your basic lecture on the activated sludge process, talk about some of the newer technologies that are being used. And it's probably not in the book, but most of our instructors work in the field. We have that experience. And so I think, again, just increasing the vocabulary by making students aware that this exists in a lot of cases is going to be enough to, they'll have something in their memory bank that they'll be able to access later when they see it. Some of the things like data science, I think that's going to be difficult to just weave into a regular curriculum. So these are the hard conversations we're going to have with our educational partners to make sure that the candidates have the skills they need.
Next, Monty Hamamoto will talk to us, and he's from Silicon Valley Clean Water.
Hello, everyone, and kind of honored to be part of this movement, which is really key to our industry. I'm going to talk more about how we're strategically investing in trying to develop these people that we're all desperately looking for. I know there was a show of hands of how many have openings, but how many in particular have openings in the instrumentation and controls department? Yeah, quite a few hands out there. We've had an advertisement up on our website for almost 2 years now, and they're tough to find. So how do we get them? What can we do to improve the industry and create and foster and develop these people? So what's driving this whole thing? What's happening? When I started out 35 years ago, I can remember the senior operator that took me around, as Jimmy was saying, yeah, you just pair them up with the senior and they take you around and they kind of train you. Well, that's how it used to be done in the old days. And this particular operator had been an operator. He was grandfathered into the certification program, just to give you an idea of how long he's been in the industry. And we walked through the activated sludge process, and I go, okay, and I'm looking at meters and other things that we had there, and he reaches down and he scoops up some with his hand and he rubs it around in his fingers and he takes a little sniff and he goes, yeah, I think we're right on target. And today, looking at how we train our operators and what we look at and how the digital world has changed operations for the better, I look back and reflect on that, and it's like, wow, he knew just by smell and feel and touch that he was right on target, and believe it or not, he was. But I wasn't going to develop that skill. I had no interest in developing that skill. So I went ahead and went the other way and started to learn more about process control and what the data meant and what we can do with that. So what's changing in the industry is automation. It creates reliability. Also, there's this thing where in management, it's like, oh, we're going to automate everything and we're going to reduce operating shifts now because we don't have to man the plant 24/7. We'll let the computers run everything. Well, what's happened is it doesn't reduce your workforce. That's what we've found. What it does is it shifts it. We may not need as many operators. Now we need more instrumentation people. We need more controls technicians. We need more electricians. So it's the same amount of headcount. It's just shifted. Also, we've talked about all the other programs and even HR programs. We just went to ADP on our payroll, and yeah, that every time you roll out a new software program, it always just goes as smooth as silk, right? Yeah, I hear everybody laughing. And then we have the thing that's just now starting to come in, and we're seeing a lot of presentations on it, and that's the future with machine learning, and artificial intelligence. So there's a lot of these kind of things starting to come, and we need to be up to speed on that, and we can't be too far behind. So there's this drive for technology advancements, and one of the things I noticed is the industry really hasn't defined what these positions are. I looked on CWA website, and there's actually, I think, 14 advertisements out there, and they're all looking for someone in the instrumentation and controls field. But they're instrumentation and controls technicians. Some people call them controls technicians. Some people call them SCADA engineers. That every job title is different, but they're all kind of looking for the same thing. So I think as an industry, that's something that we should talk about too, is trying to standardize a little more. And one of the things we've recently discovered in our agency is the electricians have a very defined skill set, and they're very defined in what their level of expertise is and what we need. Instrumentation and controls has been lumped together for many years, but now the controls folks, because of automation, they've drifted away from just being able to calibrate a flow meter or clean and calibrate a turbidity meter or a chlorine analyzer. That's a specific skill set that the other guys really don't need, maybe don't need that. So we've split it up, and we actually have 3 positions. We have electricians, we have instrumentation technicians, and we have controls technicians. And we're able to compensate the pay with the different skill sets and the different needs too. So that's been very helpful. And also, we're expecting the people that have been in the industry for a long time, there's a whole new thing they have to learn. There's a whole new language out there. I mean, how many of us talk ladder logic or structured text or functional block diagrams? I mean, all of these are new languages in that automation world. And I mean, we all have our acronym dictionary right in our back pockets to try to figure out when you talk to an instrumentation technician or a controls technician, they all speak in acronyms. So it's a whole new language. And then there's the protocols that they all have to kind of follow. And so we're looking for that expertise, which is totally different from an operator or a mechanic. So how do we find these super technicians? I mean, there's a lot of competition. It really is the 2 pictures I chose was a needle in a haystack trying to find these people with those expertise. And, we kind of refer to our guys as unicorns. They're really hard to find. And some of them even think they're little mythical creatures. Just ask them. But, there's a lot of competition. There's the water and wastewater industries that's getting fully automated. You got the manufacturing industries, and one of our biggest competitors is refineries around the Bay Area. Same skill set, but, we're all competing for the same people. And then, how do you get one? Well, there's luck, which we did get lucky recently, and we found one. Actually applied, and we hired him within 3 days. The other thing, we try to do is we invest in training our current employees. We do have some cross-training that we're currently working on. And then, as Jordan alluded to, which he's been heavily involved with Solano College, and I'm involved with Gavilan College on the same level. I teach water and wastewater classes down there. And very good programs, and that's kind of a recruitment tool for me. I'm sure Jordan looks at the same thing. We get to be with these students for 16 weeks. We get to see who they are, how dedicated they are, how smart they are. It's changed a little bit with the online learning. We don't get that in-class interaction, which to me, it's been a big recruitment tool. We've actually hired 6 people out of the programs. So it's a really great recruitment tool. If you ever get involved in being able to become an instructor for one of the local colleges, you'll find out it's a great way to meet people, learn different skill sets, and also there's a lot of people in the industry that are trying to get their continuing education units, and unfortunately none of us are above poaching from other agencies. So one of the things that we're doing and starting to get more involved in is investing in training in our current employees. We have on-the-job training where we'll pair them up with cross-training. We encourage certification programs, and there's a lot of different ones out there. CWA has their instrumentation controls technicians. There's ISA, the International Society of Automation, which has a full certification and training program, which we partake in. And then we have Wonderware as our software, and they have certification programs that we send our techs to. So that just bolsters their resumes, but it also helps the agency tremendously by getting this outside training, and they can bring it in and share it with the other employees. And then we're working with local organizations like Baywork and the colleges to develop internship programs. And we would really like to get some apprenticeship programs going, but we run into that block with unions. If they have an apprenticeship program, they're not going to allow you to have an apprenticeship program unless it's through them. So that's a challenge. It's something we're trying to work through. And if I would encourage you also, we have one of our controls technicians now that's interested, and he's now working to become an instructor at Gavilan College. So that's a one way for them to try to cultivate, and they can size up those candidates that are out there. And big thing is retention. How do you retain them? You know, we try for our agency, we work at becoming an attractive place to work. We work hard to have competitive salaries and benefits. We really focus on our work environment, and we have a really, I believe, a good reputation in the industry. And then we do invest in our employees in training, certification, and networking opportunities. We do send a fair amount of people to conferences, and they do partake in CWA events. And we sponsor all of that. So it's all very important. So, questions?
This is a question probably for Jordan and Monty. You guys are very much involved in the education pool system to get people who want to come into the industry. What do you say to people who want to come into the industry, our youth or young people in particular? Before you answer, think about the folks that may be from those underserved communities, people that struggle with school itself. They have the aptitude, but they have this inability to go to school, to enter into that pooling program. What can you recommend for those kind of individuals so that they can have an opportunity to get the skills that they need or get a program where they can become employable or through an employment program?
There's a couple of things. I mean, Jordan can, speak on his behalf, but a couple things that Jordan and I are also involved in a group. It's been around for quite some time. It's called the Bay Area Consortium for Water Wastewater Education, BACWE. And right now it's actually administered through BACWA, which is the Bay Area Clean Water Association. And BACWE used to basically sponsor the education. If you were in the BACWE program, basically the education at the colleges was free. Kind of drifted away from that. It was called contract education. And now what we do is a scholarship program. So all of my students, right at the very beginning of the semester, even beforehand, BACWE has a program where you fill out a one-page form, turn it in. There's a group within the BACWE executive committee. We review those scholarship applications. The students pay up front, so they have a little skin in the game for their books and tuition. They pass the class with a C or better, then they get fully reimbursed for all of their expenses. So that's one thing. And we also have other ways to help those that maybe don't have the funding to get into it. The other thing that I offer my students is I say, hey, we want you in the industry. Send me your resumes. I look at resumes. I look at usually 10 to 12 resumes every semester. I go through them and I look at them. I go, send them to me. I'm going to look at them because I'm on hiring committees. I want to get your resume to where it needs to be, to where that's the first look that that agency gets at you. And you want to make it to that next step for an interview. But if your resume doesn't impress them, it's going to go in this pile and you're not even going to make it to the next step. So it's very interesting. A lot of times I'll have one-on-one Zoom calls with them, go over their resume, try to find out other skills that they may have that aren't on that resume. So those are the things I do to help out those students to try to get into the industry.
The only thing I'll add to that is One of the things that surprised me when I started working with the community college is that there's a lot of outreach programs at the college to help students get through. There's tutoring, there's extra support, there's extra time if you need additional time to make an accommodation for learning disabilities and things like that. So I will also say that I've found it is extremely complicated to navigate. So again, when we talk about partnering with these colleges, I think helping them understand where the roadblocks are to students actually taking advantage of those resources is beneficial. But mostly I think the message is the good that we're doing as an industry. I think that resonates with a lot of people, and we know that it's a little bit tough to break in the door, but if you have that connection to the vision of what we're trying to do, I think it really helps students persist through what can be challenging courses and a little bit of a complex hiring process, but that's my main recommendation is we got to keep pushing the mission, what it is, the good work that we're doing in the world to really help people stick with it and see that there's a really positive light at the end of the tunnel.
That's great, thank
And
you.
just really quickly, take this down. Also, Baywork and our partners at JVS, we run a pre-apprenticeship program every semester. We've been running one at a local community college, and some people just need a little preparation and support before they even begin a community college program or before they even apply for that first job, and that's really what this program is about. Gives them some real support in terms of math skills, which are often a real big barrier, but also just a lot of the communication skills they're going to need in order to navigate. And then we stay with them for a year after that. So think about that.
A great panel, thank you.